Alright guys, so I'm going to talk about some of the equipment that I highly recommend you use if you're planning to fish the Caloosahatchee River. So there's only really two poles that you're going to need, and personally these are the two poles that I use, so I can vouch that they are good quality poles. For your normal size fish that you'll normally catch in the Caloosahatchee River, or like catfish, stingrays. Occasionally you might hook up on like some maharas, and small redfish, um, snappers once in a while, spotted sea trout, ladyfish. You might get lucky and get a jack, small ones, And these all depends on the size bait and all that stuff too, and where you're fishing at, also in the Caloosahatchee River as well. Like when you start going past, heading towards like the Cape Coral, like the Cape Coral side of the bridges and stuff, then you're getting into more saltier water, which means your fish are going to be a lot bigger, and majority of the time, not always, because I mean I've gone out to the causeway, the Sanibel Causeway, which is basically the bridge before you get to Sanibel. I've caught some small fish like mangrove snappers mainly down there, and some of the Gulf kingfish down there, but there are some big fish where you would need a bigger rod to target them type of fish. But mainly what you're going to want to use though is a 4000 series reel or a 5000 series reel. Those are like ideally, a good reel to start out with. And as far as like a rod, sometimes you can get a combo, and unfortunately I hate to like promote them because I don't, it's kind of like they're a big top of the line tackle place is Bass Pro Shop. If you buy the combo reels, like the Pin reels, like the Pin Fierce reels, the Pin Fierce rod and reel combos, they'll normally run you about like anywhere from 120, an 8000 model, like that one right there, which is the one I use to catch a lot of my big fish on. Like if you're going to be targeting like gag groupers and big snook that are like 32 inches in or bigger, or 42 inches. I got a bite on that pole. Sharks and stuff, big fish, are gonna need an 8000 type reel and rod, because you're gonna need to be able to handle that type of big fish. So that's what you're going to use for that. And for a big pole like that, you're going to want to use something like a live bait, like maybe a pinfish, or a, some type of big live fish, like maybe a whole mahara, or maybe a catfish tail if you want to cut a catfish, one of these hard hat catfish tails off and put it on. Actually, just really do gotta, actually really do got a fish on that pole right over there. I don't know if you guys can see that. But yeah, it looks like I got a fish on the pole. But anyways, I'm gonna try to finish this up because my camera is overheating really fast. So if I don't get this done, then my camera's gonna shut off. So the bait you're gonna want to use is for the Caloosahatchee River. You can use live shrimp if you want, but I've really never had much luck with live shrimp. I personally find it to be a waste of money. If you're gonna use live shrimp, I recommend you use like live shrimp out at like a water that's more clear, not a brackish water like we have here in the Caloosahatchee River. For like the Caloosahatchee River, frozen shrimp that you can get from like a bait store is perfectly good. You can catch a lot of fish with that. You're probably gonna catch like a lot of like catfish and stingray, mainly with those types of baits. When it comes to like live bait, like a pinfish, then you'll end up catching like snooks and redfish. I've heard that if you catch ladyfish, you can put live ladyfish or just cut up ladyfish on there, and redfish like that stuff too. You can also, if you're lucky, you can use crabs, like blue crabs and stuff, small ones. And I don't recommend you use like live worms or dead worms out here in this river, because they're not interested in that stuff. That's something that you use at like a lake for catching like bass and bluegills and stuff like that. You don't want to be using that type of bait out in the Caloosahatchee River. As far as like line goes, you're probably going to want to go with like a 20-pound braid, and for like a bigger pole, like an 8,000 reel, you'll probably want to go with like the max braid that it can handle. My pole 8,000 series is running 65-pound braid. And if you go to Bass Pro Shop and you buy those poles, the combo ones, and the line, they'll actually spool it for you. I have some people coming, so I'll have to finish this video. Alright, so back to where I don't even know where I was off at on the whole subject. I'm just going to jump back into the whole line part for the rods and the reels. So 65-pound braid on my 8,000 reel, and like I said, a rod like that's gonna probably run you like, after the line and the rod and the reel, when I bought it, it was about like 135 bucks. Now they do have one of the 8,000 model, and it's really windy now because I got a storm starting to move in. I'm trying to do this for you guys. They do have a live liner one, and for those of you that don't know what the live liner is, that one I actually wish I would have kind of gone for, and I kind of recommend it if you do have the money, that you do think about going with that one, because it'll save you a little bit of a hassle, especially if you're going for big fish like sharks and tarpon. It's got a back drag on it. It's a knob that's on the back end of the reel, and you can tighten that down, and then there's a switch on it so that you can have your front drag like a normal reel. Normal spinning reel has a drag system on it that you can loosen that, and you can let the fish run with it. And instead of having to tighten that drag system down before you start reeling the fish in, you just have the drag set already tight at the back end, so that you just flip that switch and then your drag is tight and the fish isn't going to go anywhere. So it's a nice little design for that, for a live liner. It's about 140 bucks for the 8,000 series from Bass Pro when I went there about a few months like before this video. And yeah, it's like the line will probably run you about 25 bucks or something like that, and they'll put it on for you. And as far as the Pinfierce 3 4,000 reel that I use, that, like I said, it'll normally be perfectly fine for catching like your catfish, small redfish, small snook, mangrove snappers, basically a lot of the inshore fish will be perfectly fine for that reel. Hopefully you can find the combo with the rod. There's a lot of tackle shops here in Southwest Florida that sell, unfortunately, they sell junk. They sell junk rods and reels. They're trash. The gear systems in them are just junk, and I don't recommend them, and I definitely don't recommend you go to Walmart, because Walmarts are trash as well. So you'll probably be best going to like a popular store like Bass Pro Shop, unfortunately, or I forgot what the other one is. But you know, here in Southwest Florida we have Bass Pro Shops, so, and this is what this video is targeting, is people who fish the Caloosahatchee River. Now these poles will work somewhat good for like going to Sanibel and Captiva and some places in Southwest Florida. Now both of these reels reels and rods that I'm talking about are for saltwater fishing. So they're not, they can work in like freshwater, but they do work for, you know, saltwater fishing and stuff. Baits, like I said, you're gonna want to use like live shrimp in clear water, and in brackish water frozen shrimp, but you're gonna be catching like a lot of catfish, maybe ladyfish, stingrays, just a lot of garbage fish. I normally use a polymer knot. You can look those up online. I might do a video on that. There's a thunderstorm coming. I use a polymer knot, and I normally use a swivel. So I use like a 3/4 of an ounce sinker. It's an egg sinker that I use, and I tie that on, and then I use a swivel. I use a polymer knot, and then that polymer knot basically goes from the swivel, and the other end of the swivel I use like a monofilament line, like 20-pound test, and then I use that to my hook. Now most of the fish, like the snappers and the trout and stuff, a size 2 hook will work really good for those types of fish. So you can just get like a number 2 hook. There's a difference between a 2/0 and a number 2 hook. A 2/0 is a 2 with a slash and a 0. That's a bigger hook. That's not what you want to use. A 2/0 would be a hook you would want to use for something like a bass, a largemouth bass. Now a size 2 hook is something you use for a smaller fish like a snapper or catfish or a stingray and ladyfish and stuff like that. When it comes to sharks, you're going to need bigger hooks, and for the Caloosahatchee River, I normally use a 5/0 circle hook, and it's not coated, so it doesn't have a coating on the hook, which means that it's exposed to the elements, so that after a period of time what's going to happen is the hook is going to rust away inside of the shark. So it's not going to stay in the shark's body and cause problems with it. After a few weeks, the salt water is going to corrode the actual hook, and it's just going to basically hopefully pass through the shark's intestines and out, or it's going to just fall out. And that's basically what I use for my bull sharks. When I use that, as far as like for catching sharks, I've used Maharas. I've seen that like out here from like the Edison Bridge towards like I-75. I think the bull sharks will like live Maharas if you can get them like about 2 inches, like 2-inch Maharas, not real big ones. You don't really want to use big ones, and you definitely, I got a nice sized fish on, a nice sized catfish or something on that one over there. Paul has been pretty good. But anyways, so Maharas, you want Maharas about like this big, okay, probably about like that thick. Put them on hook them into top back of their fin, about maybe that far, about like that far in the hook from like the body. I'll try to see if I can do a video or something like that. But anyways, run it through there and throw them out there live, or you can cut a Mahara that is like maybe this big and put like maybe 4 inches of fish on it and put it on the 5/0 circle hook and throw it out. You can use like 1 ounce egg weight to get it farther out for a farther cast. That'll help you get it farther out. I sometimes use a sinker and sometimes I don't. It all depends on the current. So out here I don't have to worry about that current because there's not much of a current. So I just like basically just put a leader on, an 80-pound wire leader, and basically tie it onto my braid and throw it out there with a catfish tail on it. I'll do a follow-up video. I'm getting sidetracked right now. I've got a fish over here on that pole bending pretty good. He needs to get off, if you can see that. My camera's getting hot, so I will try to do a follow-up on that. Thanks for watching. GoPro, stop recording.